Hello and welcome to Talking Dogs on a Monday. Indeed, we are talking about lots of dogs because there was so much happening over the past weekend, be it on this side of the Irish Sea or indeed on the far side. But of course, we're going to kick off proceedings with the Sporting Press online edition Irish Oaks. Once again, we're joined by the Doyen, that is Declan O'Donoghue, our Dublin Doyen, as he was referred to off air by Tommy Lyons, the exiled dub. Gentlemen, a pleasure to see you again. Declan, the Oaks action continued at Shelbourne Park on Saturday night, and as you would expect in a competition of this nature, one or two upsets, one or two bits of drama. As it is, there'll be no defence of the title. A lucky Julie went out following from Flasserade in the opening round, the two that dead heated last week. But Glengar Martha continues to look the part, very impressive. But there are one or two bitches just coming to the fore, some really, really promising young ladies that are just putting their hands up and going, don't forget about us.
There are quite a few actually, and it's exciting to see some new ones coming through. But you're right, the old friends. I mean, Dengar sets the standard again. An absolutely superb performance. She's electric. She's fast away. She stays all day. Burns them for pace. You know, she's so ultra consistent week after week after week. And if she keeps that up, she'll be hard to beat. But it's Greyhound racing. We saw with a Lucky Judy on Saturday indeed, and we saw with the Fay Point dog and the Produce recently. Anything can happen in dog racing. So it's far from over. I like some of the ones coming through, even Ballymac Riddle, who we wouldn't have thought. But of course, some of them are very inexperienced. She was only having, was it her fifth or sixth race, and she popped out in front and she led them all a merry dance. So she's come into the picture as well. I also thought the McGee dog is very good, which we
And
hadn't really seen before. Anna Down Ellie. Again, they're different when they lead. They suddenly are, you know. And again, she's only had a few races. So it's a double-edged sword there. They are very inexperienced. That is, you're going against the Dengar Martins of the world, they're going to bury you into that corner. You know what I mean? But at the same time, they have huge potential for improving, and they're learning on the job.
yeah, it's a combination of sort of experience and youth and promise, Tommy. We saw the likes of you and me, babe, coming through to score. We saw Glengar Martha, a few of them, but as Declan's alluded to, the likes of Anna Downelly and Ballymac Riddle and Voyage Ela, we have to give her a mention again. She ran very well
Huge, yeah.
again, but yeah, some just it's intriguing, shall we say? But I think Glengar Martha is certainly the right favourite.
Oh, she has to be the right favourite. I know there was a little bit of two of them behind kind of came together just off a second bend, but like just if you just isolate the video on Dengar Martin down the back, you say, wow, that's remarkably good. But I remember last year before the Derby, we talked and said, look, it was an absolute certainty that a first season dog would win the Derby.
Mm.
Um, we this is the way it should be. The Oaks, you've got the experience of Dengar Martin showing the way at the moment, and you're setting a standard for the young ones coming through. So, look, we talked about it and we said we didn't think at the start maybe it was the strongest Oaks we've ever seen, and that's fine to say such a thing. I think that's probably right. But Glengar Martin sets a very, very high standard, and if the others want to come and take the title off her, do, because she at the moment she's the one with one paw on it. I mean, she didn't need into bend either, which is kind of interesting. It kind of gives a little bit of hope to those around them. It's just the way she ran the first bend, the way she ran down from two to three was exceptionally good. So yeah, at the moment, Ian, no question, she's the right favourite.
Yeah, let's race through the heats. We'll start with the opening heat. Ballymac Riddle, Declan, you mentioned this lady, Black Eye Turbo is in behind her. And, when Black Eye Turbo is in behind you, like she is fantastic form of 575, 600 yards. You know you're in a bit of trouble, but Ballymac Riddle, in fairness to her, she's strengthening up all the time. 28.60, it's not massive on the clock, but there was a little bit of rubbing between the pair, and you could sort of take off a length or two maybe off it. But I like the way Ballymac Riddle did it. And as you said, she's so young, so open to improvement. Behind her, Black Guy Turbo second. Drunshambo Susie was back in third. I thought she ran a hell of a race. She really did stay on strongly. Unanimous Roxy has yet to fire in this competition, and yet she's still very prominent in the betting. But Ballymac Riddle was the one to take out of it.
Yeah, it's an interesting heat. Ballymacrydal Riddle absolutely impressed, and like I think the Liam's runners in this, they've all only raced in Shelbourne. They are inexperienced, but they've done all the racing and the trials in Shelbourne, so that must count for something. And she popped out in front, and she was gone. I thought Unanimous Roxy was unlucky actually the first bend. There was a lot of crowding and bunching stuff going on there. She was the biggest loser in that. Drumshanbo Susie ran well. Interestingly, she finished wide coming home. And I just wondered, maybe the Tramp 1 draw wasn't the advantage that we thought it would be for her. She's in the middle this week, which will probably suit her better, I would think. Black Eyed Turbo, I agree with you. When she could lose, I said she's going to win it. But Ballymount Riddle held on pretty snugly in the end, yes.
Yeah, it was all pretty comfortable. Tommy Ballymac-Riddle going on to score by a length in 28.60. We'll move on to the second heat. Tommy, Carrick Freya. This was a race you probably may not have seen. A video wasn't available, I'd say, after hours. I'll tell you what happened. Carrick Freya popped out and made every inch of the running.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it. It was getting interesting in behind, Declan. Kornikova had found traffic on a couple of occasions. She was starting to make a move into the third bend, as was a Lucky Julie. Now, they were still well off the pace. They probably weren't going to get to the winner, but Kornikova was close enough that she might have just had a say in the finish. But as she's edging in around the bottom two bends, she took a fairly hefty bump and she sort of sent backwards. And as she goes backwards, a Lucky Julie she'd nowhere to go. She just basically trips up over her, takes a perler of a fall. But the two of them ran on strongly into the escape. I absolutely have no problem saying I think both of them came off the track perfectly sound. Kornikova actually didn't hit the deck, but she was so badly balked that she had no chance of recovering. Kulavani Shona came through for second, and Omi missed, who was never too far away. It got third. Ballymac Danica survives another round despite still look like she needs, well, at least 2 or 3 runs and 3 or 4 weeks maybe. But Carrick Freya just did everything right, Declan. We might as well skip Tommy in this one if he hasn't seen it, but just great to see a Lucky Julie getting up and running on.
It was the winner. First of all, was impressive, and I think she would have won anyway. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was quite a good run from her. The other two, the Kornikova was unlucky certainly. I find with the third bend, if there's only 2 coming into it, the one on the outside has a huge advantage always. But if there's 3 or 4 going into it, the outside is the last place to be. And that's where a Lucky Julie was. Now, she was off the pace. She wasn't running particularly well. You would have to say that. I know she's been a long time off and all the rest of it, but she wasn't running particularly well. But with 4 qualifying, she would have got through. Kornikova would certainly have qualified. And I fancy Kornikova to go a very long way in it, actually. So it's very sad to see the 2 of them going out. In saying that, the ones that went through are all used to. Kulavani Shona ran on very well towards the end. But the winner let Tramp the line, and I think she would have won anyway.
She's a couple of decent lines of form to go back on her card. Like she has one run there, sort of last October, beaten a length by Hope's Teddy in Limerick in 28.16. So I don't think it's a complete surprise to see her winning. She was only 5-2 in the opening round. She never really got a chance to go. Whereas on this occasion, she popped out. She did everything right. Declan, I heard you got the trio twice. It paid, what was it, €455?
I was hoping to say quiet about that. But the winner, you see, Graham used to race these dogs a lot more at Shelbourne in times gone by, and we knew them a lot better. This one we didn't really in Shelbourne, we didn't know a lot about. She has a decent card, she's a bit of experience, but this was a top performance. Absolutely it was. And but it's very unlucky the 2 that went out. They're 2 of the best in the whole stake. Let's face it, Lucky Julie is defending champion, and Kornikova is very, very impressive. Again, she's only.
I just get the impression with Kornikova, she's only just starting to find her feet. I think she's.
Oh, absolutely. She's only had 9 races. Yeah, she will be. I expect to see her in the Derby heats later on. She is that level.
Yeah, she's taken on the dogs before. No surprise to see her taking on the dogs again. We'll have to go to our Cork correspondent here, Declan, because Clonmel Alice for Tom O'Neill. There's 78 pounds of her. She's a fair unit, this lady, Tommy, but you wouldn't have minded been on a 5-2 after 3 strides.
She's a funny one. She's just sometimes you and I have chats about how big dogs look in striding, the way they stride and all that. Sometimes you say it's the colouring, and maybe it's the colouring in her, but she looked like she kind of, maybe because she has a kind of a black head and white neck, and she just looks like she's almost coming with her head down and nearly stumbling out. But they tell you what, if she's stumbling out, the early pace she's showing is incredible. She's she's out of Droopy's Alice, which the broad strand Sid. She's seriously fast. This was like she was a different level. I tell you what, the runner-up wouldn't have frustrate you, Bolus Raven, because it's obviously a middle seed, but every bend it wants to nearly go inside Greyhounds at the bend. First bend, the third bend. Talk about taking the paint off the rails at those points, and that is frustrating because Bolus Raven has loads of ability, loads and loads.
Funny you mentioned that, Tommy. If you go back 24 hours earlier, she was the one showing all the pace in the final Newbridge Derby. She ran up the backside of one into the third bend, cutting in on it. And There's no question she has loads of pace. And I spoke to Jamie
But
McGee
she,
about her
but
last
she
week, and he felt that the switching of tracks would suit her. I'd say
mm.
maybe she just is a bit, she's a bit mad, shall we say, but she can
Well,
certainly run.
she's like it's frustrating because she is a middle seed to some point. She does like to move off down the back and run a perfectly good line most of the way down the back, and then cut so tight that she's nearly trying to go inside the one in front. And it just because when they have that ability, you want them to show it. And just if you don't do things right as you go up through the levels, you get away with a graded level to some degree. You don't get away with it when you're in top open company, and that's the issue there with Bulls Raven. Very very fast, but just needs to learn.
Yeah, we lost to one of the more fancied runners here, Satin Tango. She was sent off the 6-4 favourite. Just didn't happen for her. She found crowding the first bend and done at the third bend as well. But Declan, Clonmel, Alice is certainly one. If you were picking five for the competition, she'd probably be amongst them. Given her ability to start like that and go to a corner, she's shown loads of ability in recent weeks. And Tom O'Neill is, well, his kennel is absolutely motoring this year. I know she's a bit of age on her side, like she'll be 4 years of age in September, but she'd have to be on the short list.
If you ask me now, I'd say she's the biggest danger to Lingard at the moment. The way she's running, she runs the track brilliantly. She's powerful, and Ballsport. I haven't seen Ballsport, and probably haven't priced it up yet, but I'd be very interested to see what price she will be to win it outright.
Yeah, she won't be a huge price. I can promise you that. For her age, she doesn't have an awful lot of racing. Of course, she's only just 25 starts, is it? Come on, yeah, it was her 25th start the other evening. So it'll be very interesting to see how she goes through the rest of the competition. On to Anna Down, Ellie, Tommy. Declan's already told you how impressed he was. I was very impressed with her also. She's very young. She's a member of a fast litter. I believe her brother, Hedford Asher, won at Toaster on Sunday. He's seen as one of the bright lights in the UK. Went out the opening round of the Derby, but he looks a real prospect. And this lady, you know, funny enough, I sat down to do a report yesterday morning and I was ready to write, oh, she went on to win by a couple of lengths. She won by 6 lengths. At one stage, Ballymacmint was within 2.5 lengths of her down the back straight. Like she wins six. Like she's fast, but she's also pretty strong, this lady. And there's no sort of ceiling to where this one can go. 28.36. Track wasn't absolutely flying. There were a couple of good runs in the card, and we'll get to the Summer Cup in a few minutes. But Anna Down Ellie, 28.36. There was nothing to be sniffed at with this one. It was a hell of a run.
Oh, because there were three bitches behind her going down to third bend, as you say, Ballymacmint was closest, but it's about a length and a half even at one point before she cuts across a little bit at the bend. But she absolutely motors up the straight, and it's like there are four of them within, at a point that they could tighten the gap a little bit, and they don't. It was impressive. She's not unlike the previous bitch in looks wise. She's not unlike Tom O'Neill's bitch. Tom O'Neill's bitch is actually 12 to 1. I see there to win it. Actually, I fourth or fifth favorite. Is it fifth favorite?
Okay. Anna Downelly, Declan, very impressive. Ballymacmint continues to run well, but she was sort of found wanting, I suppose, was regards the leader. The winner just ran away from her. Lemon Orlick again caught the eye. She's frustrating in a sense where she just doesn't have the early speed, but I'll tell you one thing, she has some engine.
Lemon Orly, yeah, I would, 550, you would put her in the mix, but I think 525 in Shelbourne. If you keep missing the kick, it's you're playing with fire the whole time. But my God, she can certainly come home. She's a fantastic greyhound, but 525 isn't her trip. Like you, I was very impressed with the winner, I have to say, and she kicked off in the third bend and she just ran away from them. For one that we hadn't seen doing that, we hadn't really seen her front. She won once from the front. She only had five races.
Yeah, this was only a fifth
Incredible
start.
performance.
Remarkable, yeah. First
Yeah,
time,
yeah,
and the first time she ever set the pace, Declan. I suspect looking at her the other evening, it won't be the last time she'll do it because she looked pretty natural.
yeah, yeah. She did everything right. It was a perfect performance.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's the best way to describe it. We've spoken about Glengar Martha. We'll just touch on it again once. Listen, the 10 links, I was going to say it flatters her. It doesn't really flatter her. Like, she absolutely put them to the sword. But there was traffic in behind between Velvet Jenny and Brockett Justine. But for that, she might have won 8 lengths. But the fact of the matter is, she does 28-7, 28-27, putting pace to the race, not making the sort of same start that we know she can make. Although she's down as a 205 and a 210 the previous week, 205 be a running. Maybe Velvet Jenny just absolutely scalded out. Yeah, she did a 2:02, which is pretty remarkable. But Glengar Martha just went around her as if she was on rails around the opening two bends, and it was the manner in which she put her rivals to the sword was so impressive, and hard not to be impressed with her. Tommy, we've already spoken about her, but she is definitely, like, certainly in current form, she's the one to be.
She is, and the two impressive points of the race for me were the first bend where the Velvet Jenny's in front of her and she has to drive around it. And maybe I'm not sure. Maybe Velvet Jenny got slightly
She
tipped,
did just get
maybe
a
no,
slight little rub off
there's
Brock
very
Justine.
slightly at the
Yeah,
bend, but Glengar Martin drove around that bend and all the way down the back. 2 to 3 was like so impressive. Even though 3 and 4 came together, Velvet Jenny and Brock Justine is it didn't matter if it wasn't going to be 10 lengths. The third bend, it was going to be six and an impressive six anyway. So look,
yeah.
she's the right favor. She's 9 to 4. She's 9 to 4 as well. I know we talked about, you mentioned something last week about how she tends to be at her best early in the stakes, and I did say that about a year and a half ago. We talked about her. That's the kind of way it was. I think she matured a lot last
Oh,
year.
I think there's a great amount of maturity after going in. Like,
Yeah, I think so.
she's reached a
Yeah,
number of stakes since then, and
yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
I think you can't say that about her anymore. I think she's
No,
just
she matured. She matured a lot last year. I thought, and what she's doing now isn't any bit of a surprise. And if she goes on and win it, she's the right winner. If you know what I mean,
yeah.
she's classy to hold up the Oaks to the standard we've come to expect from it. Like she's not we're not going to look at her and say, ah, she was an okay winner of the Oaks. No, she's a top class lady. So if she keeps in that form, she's going to be hard to beat. Not impossible to beat, but
It's only
difficult
a
to
matter
beat.
of weeks, Declan, when you think about it. She's done, like, she posted 27.81 around Shelbourne Park back on Easter Cup final night. Like, it was a hell of a run. I suppose we probably should have kept that in mind. And her two subsequent starts before she came back to Shelbourne Park were in the select stakes, where she finished fourth behind Seven Beach after missing the kick in the final and finding early
That's it.
traffic. So, like, her form this year has been pretty hot. She has a 28-12 in Cork. Just
Did you?
just a star.
You can see, and sorry, Declan, but you can see
Yeah.
um, how or why Waterford wouldn't suit that. Like that's entirely unforgiving, and taking on dogs, and like that's a really unforgiving. It's a bit like Curraheen Park. If you haven't got electric early pace, and I don't think she has that. If you know what I mean, against dogs and that sort of thing. I don't think she has that electric early pace. It's more than enough. She didn't lead the other night, but it's more than enough against the bitches at this level. And she's top class, but that's why she can win heats of Derby. We don't think she's going to win a Derby even in this form.
Yeah. It's a long time ago since she won a second round heat of the Derby in
Mm,
2023. Returned at 28-1.
that's
Behind her
right,
that
yeah.
night were subsequent Derby finalists Droopy's Nice One, the Laddie Dab, Balnabola Ed, and others. Yeah, 28-1. I can safely say she'll never start 28-1 again in her career. I want to mention Droopy's Glamour in second, Declan. We've seen a bit of this lady. She's pretty strong. I thought she ran very well in second. Like, she's beaten 10 lengths, but she hasn't she hasn't been overly prolific, let's say, in recent months. But I don't think it'll be a long while before she's winning again. Perhaps not in this Oaks, but I'd say there's a race or two in her.
It was a good performance. It was like when Velvet Jenny flew out, like we were talking about experience. Velvet Jenny has raced 65 times, so she knows her way around and around Shelbourne in particular, and she stays 750. So she isn't one
Well,
that you
no,
can
she's
just
won
pick
over
off.
750, but she doesn't stay it.
Well, she's won over it. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah, I know.
And I mean, she certainly isn't one that you pass easily. And
Yeah,
Glengar went by her like she just wasn't there. You know.
yeah.
Now she may have. I agree with you. The Broca Justine is very good as well. They probably did hit off each other quite a bit. So, both of them would have been near with the winner. So Droopy Slam ran on very well. It was a best performance for a while. But it was a strange. Laura is a very good dog too. She's an experience. She's just going up in grade here. Really,
Mm.
she will be this grade in time. I've no doubt about that. But the winner was simply exceptional.
Yeah, she was very good. We'll move on to the final heat. Declan, you and me, babe. Yeah, I'll be honest. She's certainly one of my favorites. I just love her. She has a real sort of swashbuckling style. She's very versatile. You can run her over any trip you want, I'd suggest. She has 28:07 for the 525-yard trip the other evening. And not everything went right for her, but she was always too close to the pace. But Voyagila ran again. Another huge race out front. She was picked up by you and me, babe, who had to shake off the attentions of Hawkfield Abbey. The two two of them bumped a couple of times, but Hawkfield Abbey did qualify back and forth. But You and Me, babe, she's just so powerful. You know that she's in the mix of the third bend. She could be right there on the line.
Exactly. She's much better over longer trips, obviously, but she's pretty useful over 525 as well. It's unlucky for Voyage either the two times she's in front. She had this one coming on behind her, you know. At least
Yeah.
they're drawn apart in the third round. But she's a brilliant greyhound. She stays forever. She must be a great one to own and to train because she can run in any competition over any trip, and she will always put in a top performance.
Yeah, she's just you could sort of set your watch by her a bit, Tommy, couldn't you? This You and Me, babe.
You know, it's lovely to watch the way she raced from the third bend home, maybe the crown of the third and fourth bends. Broke well enough, outpaced into the bend, got held up wide. Not just she was in that position, but she got held up wide all the way down to the third bend effectively. But once she engaged top gear, like she really wanted, you can see it in her stride. She really wanted to get there, and not only did she that and one of the best sights in greyhound racing is when not just when they come up and challenge the one in front, they just sweep by, just gone.
Yeah, Voyagila again. You're right, Tommy. She showed a real desire to get to the front again the other evening. There's a lot to like about this lady, and you can sense that there's still an awful lot to come from her. She probably didn't look as strong in defeat as she had done the previous week, but again, that's going to come.
Yeah, it is. I still think she was green at the first bend. I didn't think she drove around the first bend. She wanted to get to the front, and she kind of didn't. She wants the rails too badly. My God, she like even from two, she wants the rails. She probably didn't look as. It's just, this is a steep learning curve. You're in the Oaks, like I mean, you're in the Oaks, and you're when you're basically starting your career. And yeah, maybe she didn't look as strong, but look, she's not going to win the Oaks at this stage. It doesn't look that way. But by God, she got some future.
Yeah. She remember a very fast family. Obviously, Kornikova is her sister,
Mm.
a couple of others. But if you go back a couple of litters, she's a half sister to 365, who of course
Mm.
was a Derby finalist for Scott Phelan. So be interesting to see how she develops. Kilwest Diva and Hawkfield Abbey did progress. It's a cracking oak still. It's very competitive. Yet we have a pretty hot favourite. Declan Glengar Martha is the one to beat. I'm just looking at the draw for the next round. Glengar Martha has been drawn in six in the last of the four heats.
Yes.
She's facing some talented rivals, but you'd suspect she should be leading up the likes of Drewby's Glamour and Black Guy Turbo. Unanimous Roxy hasn't produced her best in the competition, nor to Drewby's Bundle, and Sadie's Lucy is just a model of consistency. But Glengar Martha, I would suspect, will be a pretty short favourite in that last heat.
Yeah. There doesn't seem to be a huge amount of early pace in the race. You know, perhaps Droopy's bundle, Sadie's Lucy on defence can shift all right, but it's set up for her there. She should be long odds on, I would imagine, in that heat.
I noticed that You and Me, babe, is in trap one in heat three. It's going to take a bomb to keep her out of the final, as far as I can see. Like, I don't know if she can find enough trouble to keep her out of the final. Even the other night, she's held up on more than one occasion. She finds a way to win. She may start favourite, maybe Carrick Freya in the third heat. Broca Justine will go up strongly up the middle of the track. Could be a potential issue for Carrick Freya, but I suspect You and Me, babe, especially if she traps like she has done the last two nights, will have too much into the corner for Cool of Shona, could find herself in a lovely position, Tommy.
I think it's an ideal draw because there's kind of a without electric early pace. There's a nice bit of early pace on the outside on her right. She only has to. The joy of having Kulavani Shauna in two is that you probably get plenty of space because You and Me, babe, is able to break without going into the bend. Is able to break, and it's a matter of holding position early, and I think she'll do that.
Yeah, and we're working our way backwards, as you can tell. Heat
Yes.
two, Clonmel is drawn in trap one, and wouldn't you know it, Lemon Orla, Kennel Companion drawn in trap two. Tom O'Neill not happy with that draw, but I suspect both of them could potentially qualify here. Declan, but throw in Drumshambo, Susie, Velvet Jenny, Bodis, Raven, Ballymacmint. It's a decent contest, but I think Clonmel will be a pretty warm favourite given the fact that Lemon Orla shouldn't really trouble her early.
She will. Just to go back to heat three, I think Broca Justine could lead up in the third heat. Actually, yeah, Tom Morales she is running superbly. She's running superbly. She's got a lovely draw on there. And her cannon mate Lemon Order beside her is another top class sound, but won't come out as quickly you would think. Drum Shambo Susie is nicely drawn there. I think Velvet Jenny can go up as we saw the other night. and Ballymac Mint is improving. Borderless Raven. It's a good heat, but Clonmel stands out.
Yeah, she'll be pretty warm, I would suspect. And then to the opening heat, and again, a lot depends on what Ballymacdanica turns up. She's just not quite firing yet after her return from seasonal rest. I know they were rushing her back, so it'll be interesting to see if she improves enough to get through. Qualification would be more than enough for connections, but just to be interesting to see how Anna Downelly pops out and if she goes up as strongly as she did last week. If she does, she's going to emerge as the one to beat. But Voyagila will be prominent. Ballymacdanica, while she's not fully firing at present, she can still go up pretty strongly. Ballymacriddle showed that she could go up reasonably well. Hawkfield Abbey is generally consistent, but she's missed a kick the last two nights, and Ballymacmarcia is pretty strong. It's another fascinating contest. Anna Downelly could well start favourite, but just this is one of those races where you wouldn't just dismiss any of them too easily, Tommy. Yeah, I think I'll go for Anna Downelly, but I'd like her to be doing things right.
Be the toughest heat of the whole lot because talked about Voyagila a minute ago. She's going to improve again on sectionals. I mean, you can see the determination again to get to the bend in front the other night. She's going to improve again on sectionals. It's gone from 2:15 on debut to 2:09, I think, the other night. I could easily see her getting down to 2 seconds in a few runs' time. I think she's going to show that type of early pace. But Ballymacdanica, there's a fair test of her trying to get to the front early, and because Voyagila went left out of track 2 the other night, there's just a potential that there'd be a bit of a bumping there. So maybe something on the outside, but I wouldn't be wildly confident now. I'll be honest about it. Maybe Anna Downelly, but she's got to do things right as well. I think that's the trickiest heat. I think in heat 2, you can just come back for 1 second. Tom O'Neill's too. I tossed this around in my head a few times. First of all, I thought maybe you'd want Lemon Orla in 1 and Clonmel in 2, because I think Clonmel might be just a little bit too tight to the rails from there to break to the very best of her ability.
Also, that bit better from off the fence, but yeah,
I think so. Look, maybe I'm wrong with that, but I think so. But I would say actually Lemon Orla, her Cork form suggests she can break a bit better than she has been doing in Shelbourne. And if she's going to improve a little bit, and I suspect Tom's a brilliant trainer, I think she's going to improve a little bit in that respect. So maybe it's the right thing is that Clonmel, who has the more early paces in 1 and gets away and gives Lemon Orla a chance to slip around behind. And maybe you said that he mightn't be that happy that I think he'd be very happy with the two of them being drawn 1 and 2 in that, to be honest.
Given the fact that they're so contrasting in terms of their early speed and their racing styles, it might actually suit both of them. Declan, coming back to that opening heat, Anna Downelly.
Yes, with the now it's a heat to keep watching brief. Frankly, the Danica, though, I mean, she hasn't really found her form yet, and she potentially could win it, but on last week's form, Anna Downelly definitely.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting contest. That's the Sporting Press online edition. Irish Oaks continues at Shelbourne Park on Saturday night. We're just going to briefly touch on the opening round heats of the Summer Cup. Declan, €10,000 an offer to the winner, and my suggestion that the track may not have been as fast as we've seen it. Epic Ace did absolutely everything right. He does 15.87 at third bend, does 28.20. If it had flashed up 27.90, it wouldn't have surprised me.
That's true. That recent hot sprint competition we had, to my mind, there was 2 or 3 top class 525 prospects in that race, and Epic Ace is most certainly one of them. He's proven now 28.20, a superb performance. The sections were 15.81, was it 80? Sections were outstanding, frankly. It was a superb performance. But there are a couple of good dogs in that competition. He will have to keep doing something like that.
Carrick Aldo showed. He showed glimpses of what I think we can expect to see in the future from him. He does most things right, wins in 28.44, and yet Tommy looked green. I suspect there's lengths to come from Carrick Aldo. It genuinely looked like maybe this was his first look.
Yeah, because off the bend at the first bend, and even coming out of the traps, it's not flying out of the boxes. He moves off a little bit. He's wide down the back. He runs a nice line, 3rd to 4th. He's exceptionally exciting, but because there's plenty more to come. He does run a middle to wide line. Which is a fine line if you're on your own, but just as things hot up a little bit, it'll just be interesting to see how he develops. He has that potential, though. He really, really does.
He has Derby potential. That's how it could be.
Yeah,
could be absolutely anything going forward.
You'd love the extra yard into the bend where he can sort himself out rather than it's not like what he did at the first bend the other night is not like what Sonia and Cora does in sprints. That's a move out on purpose to kind of run the bend. He's just running off in greenness and just lack of experience. So you love the extra yards and the extra bit of experience just to see what he can do.
Yeah, Declan, hard not to be impressed by him. I'm also going to mention, obviously, Infield Destiny was second. That's generally where he finishes. That's just his style of racing. He just leaves himself too much work to do. He powered into the third bend to go second. But I thought Sunshine Sue ran a sneakily good race back in third spot. Sort of got a bit shuffled out of it in the early yards, given his inexperience. That's no surprise. He seemed to be out of it off the second bend, and he just sort of appeared to finish third late. So I suspect that Sunshine Sue, I think he can upgrade that performance, but Carrick Scholesy, again, 28.44. I'd have no problem saying I expect him to do a half second faster in the future.
Yeah, yeah, and there was a lot of talk about a lot of money for it. He is again very inexperienced, of course, and green, and it just had to improve. Just has to. Once he led the first bend, though, he was suddenly over then. Going into the corner, that was he wasn't a 46 shot, but once he hit the front, it was good night. That was it. He was gone. So he's very impressive. Yeah, not sure Trap One actually is his best box. I think he can run from the middle as well, but very impressive. Very impressive. But yeah, Epic Ace was exceptional.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting competition. It'll be very interesting. Epic Ace, as we've seen, he's not always a flying starter like that. But on this occasion, he absolutely took off. Just a brilliant run, 28.20. But again, Carrick Scholesy could well be the one to beat in the competition just going forward. Guan, my boy, produced a fine run to win in the opening heat for the O'Connell family from Askeaton. That was his first look at Shelbourne Park. Hard not to be impressed by how he did at 28.71. He'll have a bit to find, obviously, and surprise reunion. He knows his way around Shelbourne backwards. He ran in 28.66. Big run of defeat there by Price's Romeo. And also in the opening heat, I was very impressed with Happy Jet in defeat. I think both of those two youngsters, they both came out of, I think it's Enniscorthy they both ran in. I think both of them will improve. But
oh yeah,
an intriguing little contest, Declan. It's not just €10,000 between Carrick Scholesy and Epic Ace. There's one or two other runners in there.
There are. Surprise reunion didn't surprise at all because he does run. I think it was in the Kirby. He was away for a while and didn't. But once he's back in Shelbourne, he's improving all the time now. How much he can improve clockwise, I'm not sure, but he's a very, very good dog. Loves Shelbourne and a very, very genuine dog. I think the two you mentioned are the two that stand out on the clock and what we performance wise, what you saw with your eyes as well. They are two exceptional dogs, and really to pick up something to beat both of those, it could happen, but I'd say it's unlikely. It does seem to be between the two of those, definitely.
Sorry, go on, my boy.
No,
It's
go ahead.
better than the time. It's better than the clock. I think that effort
Possibly,
was,
yeah,
I like the attitude, and I also thought that Price's Romeo took a kind of a false step between the third and fourth bends there, just slightly for a second. If you watch the tail, you notice a bit better. Just slight false step, and he went in behind the leader and ran on strongly. It was a nice performance in defeat.
Yeah, true homebred. Price's Jet or the Price's Opera. Paul Hennessy hoping that Price's Romeo will improve on that, and no doubt he will. Two cracking competitions ongoing at Shelbourne Park. Look forward to them. There were a couple of fine displays actually on the Friday night as well. Won't really have much time to mention it, but a couple of 750 runs worth mentioning. Delicate Lady, I thought was very, very impressive for John Kennedy or Mary Kennedy. Yeah, Mary Kennedy. Look, I want to keep an eye on, let's say, going forward in the Corncucullen. There was also another novice 750, which was one in good style. But we have to move on. We had classic action last night, of course, at Clonmel, gentlemen. The Produce Stakes, three semi-finals. We don't often see it in Ireland, but it can sometimes produce a hot contest and hot final. It will be a pretty hot final, but we did lose maybe one or two of the more fancied runners, including Fate Point Ranger, who Declan, he did everything wrong in the opening heat. He just completely missed the kick and was badly balked on the opening bend. In contrast, Flashing Saffron showed her early dash to slip around in front, but she was picked up by Blast Off Heffo, those two qualifying. Blast Off Heffo, 28.94, showing plenty of strength for Philip Buckley to pick up Flashing Saffron, who was sold during the week. She's going to be going to the UK soon after the Produce Stakes, but she has a classic final to take in before then.
She does. She ran brilliantly. The favourite completely missed the kick. It was already in trouble, and then just was actually to take. had no chance after the first bend. Was just taken out of it. So, yeah. But the winner did well too. The winner stuck at it, came around, and was in front of where it mattered. But Flashing Star, yeah, she's a good future going across the water, definitely. Yeah, and she's in the final. And if she comes away as well, she's a big chance in that final.
Yeah, your thoughts on it, Tommy?
Is it random that they just do the three semi-finals races 4, 7, and 8? I don't know. I don't.
It
Um,
threw me off as well because I actually missed
so
I missed race four and then I got to see the other two live. But again, I was ended sitting and waiting until three-quarters of an hour because I just missed the first semi-final and had to wait for the video till this morning. But yeah, I don't know. It's not something I like. I like the heats together. It's always been
I
that
like
way.
them together too because the
Yeah.
track is more likely to be similar for that half an hour if it's a three heats or whatever. It's going to be similar. You know, the track can change a lot over the course of a night. Having an idea what it's doing, I don't know. I don't know that it does anything for the stake by splitting up like that. But the winner did actually in the first heat did exceptionally well to win. Because it just didn't, miss the kick and got a bit of trouble early actually out of traps and then showed lovely pace trying to find a way through. Just for a 5 dog race, it was exceptionally messy.
Hmm. Philip Buckley, like he's a fair record with his blast off dogs, isn't he? Like he said, classic finalists in recent years, and
Yeah.
classic winner, in fact, in recent years. But this blast off Heffo just seems to be a really nice, solid running greyhound, and still very limited experience. He had a couple of races around Limerick before being thrown into the deeper waters of the Kirby Memorial, and went well in that for a couple of weeks, but here we are, and he's now a produce stakes finalist, and who's to say where his improvement will stop? Just a decent type of dog. His sort of draws Wildcat out of Blast Off Cat, of course, a homebred there. Moving on to the second semi-final, and this was the standard setting run. Snazzy Boss on the outside, while Graham Holland saw Fay Point Ranger going out. Tommy, such is the kennel strength that he can just pull one out of the air, and Snazzy Boss justifying 10 to 11 favoritism, winning by 3.5 lengths. Hard not to like how he did it, and just a pretty comfortable winner.
Really love from the crown of the first two bends to early in the back straight. Just love that part of the race. That's where he drove on to win the race. I know he went on to win 3.5 lengths and whatever else, but that's where he won the race for me. Really wanted to drive the bend and get into the prime position to chase the lure. Uh, like shade of odds on 28-23. Absolutely nothing wrong. Just really good performance.
Yeah, Declan, this is another one of the sort of Carrick Freya mold. Like normally we would have seen this type of dog in the past, but Graham doesn't come to Shelbourne as often. This dog, all his running has been done at Clonmel and Limerick. He's clearly a fast greyhound, and dare we say it, I know it's something we say all too often. It looks like a real Shelbourne Park greyhound.
Possibly, yeah. He's very good and he's well named. But as Tommy says, he was the boss down the back straight. He said, I'm contacting this race here, mate, and that's it. So very impressive. And like all dogs in the produce stakes, still has plenty of potential to improve further. Very often, you're back in the produce stakes. It's dogs go out in the early rounds that
Yeah.
go on to achieve great things. But he looks good. He looks good, absolutely. Does want the outside right, but that's fine.
That's he's most likely to get it. And then to the last of the three semi-finals, and Lemon Joey, a dog who has been sort of knocking on the door for some time, run well in a couple of competitions, the National Puppy Stake and the Kirby for much of it. And here we are. He's after winning a semi-final of the Produce Stakes to take his place in the decider. Born Braver showed loads of foot in second spot. I think they were found themselves on opposite sides of where they wanted to be. I think Born Braver found himself on the outside of Lemon Joey, whereas I think both of them would have been happier the other way around. Balnavila Bolt was back in third and Rural Anna fourth. So this was a pretty deep affair. Balnavila Bolt was the 13 to 8 favourite. But Lemon Joey got off the front, Tommy, and when he does, he's very hard to beat. Now, as it was, Born Braver did show all sorts of pace and got it to within a half length, but it could have easily gone the other way.
Yeah, like there's nothing untoward about it. Born Brave was kind of inside, outside kind of the other night. But I think I just put it down to one of those things. I think you're right. It kind of sounds funny, but you're right that they just run the wrong sides of where they wanted to be. Because if you look at Born Braver's form, like you win by coming from off or behind to win by 3 lengths the last day, 9 lengths the previous day. There's nothing in it. Just that it just happened to never get to. Sometimes we talk about clever dogs, and we talk about dogs who just want to run a certain line. Clever dogs can decide what the right thing to do is. Some dogs just run a certain line and that's it. And it just seems like Born Braver on the night wants to run a certain line and it just wasn't allowed to. Lemon Joey is not frustrating, but he's so good He's so good that you think he's going to pop up and win one of these. And I hope he does sooner rather than later. He was a beaten favourite, I think, in the semi-finals of the Kirby. Things didn't happen for him, having looked exceptionally good in the early rounds of the Kirby. He had a bit of experience going into it. I'd like him to win something like this. I really would. I think he's that, or me being me. I'll throw him into the frustrating bucket if that's if he doesn't. That's just the type I am.
Yeah, he went off favourite in last year's National Public Stake final. So like that
Yeah,
tells you what they
yeah,
think of him, how highly he is thought of. He
yeah.
will race from trap 5 in the final. He's the sole middle seed. Snazzy Boss is in the stripes of 6. And then you have Destiny in 1, Flashing Saffron in 2, Blast Off Hefo in 3, and Born Braver in 4. I think we're all suspecting that something like Flashing Saffron will be prominent on the inside. And then it's a case of where Lemon Joey and Snazzy Boss or Born Braver will also probably look to get involved at some point. It's not a race where you can sort of make a definitive call, Declan. It's pretty open, even though Snazzy Boss is a bit in hand on the clock.
Yeah, I also like his attitude. Now I must say Lemon Joey as well. That first bend was messy, but he was going to win. He was going to win that heat, and that was that. He is improving. As well as getting experience. But Flashing Saffron could make on. They absolutely shoot him.
Yeah, it's strange enough affair, Tommy. Any thoughts on it?
Yeah, I do, because I think I think every one of them in the final is capable of doing about well, maybe with the exception of Blast Off Hefo, is capable of doing probably a 285-ish kind of. It's not electric. We have seen 270 what sevens, maybe 78s. That's the real electric early pace. And maybe it's just the way the track is going. I don't know, but they all seem to be in a similar kind of bracket, or 5 of the 6 seem to be in a similar bracket in terms of what they can do early. So it's going to take something at that first bend, bravery or a bit of luck. And we've seen that Lemon Joey has the bravery. We've seen that Snazzy Boss has the bravery at the first bend where they need it. Maybe Snazzy Boss will be favoured because the way he drove the bend the last day. I would say though, he's a wide seed, but he's a more middle to wide seed than me for me.
Hmm.
He's not a hair rail kind of a dog. So I would just slightly favour Lemon Joey. Slightly.
It'd be interesting to see what Flashing Saffron does to the opening corner. She has a
Yeah.
288 there. Her 309 are in Enniscorthy. Like 309 is absolutely on fire at Enniscorthy. That's an exceptional sectional. So it'd be interesting to see if she could repeat that sort of line of form. This could well be her last start in Ireland. It'll be interesting to see if she can get off the front and claim a produce stakes. But it's an intriguing final again. That's taking place on Sunday. That's Sunday again. We remain on Sunday. So June 1st, Sunday evening at Clonmel, the final of the Carrick Aldo at Stud National Produce Stakes. Well done to them. While we're on the mention of Carrick Aldo, I just want to mention that on Saturday night, the Carrick Aldo at Stud ON1 400 was won at Dundalk by Magical Luca. Now, well, the videos weren't there yesterday. They are there now, so bear with me just for a second. He was racing for Trap 3, having won in 2101 and 2094 in the previous 2 rounds. He won his final the other evening in 2086. Now, that's lightning fast. This is a Greyhound, King Sheeran and Magical Mary, who is bred to stay further. Don't get me wrong, Magical Mary stays further, but he has loads of early boot and early poke. It'll be interesting to see if they go down the 4 bend route with him now, or they target the Irish Sprint Cup with 2886 on his card. Sort of hard to sort of turn down a chance. He looks very exciting. Just one to keep an eye on. I know I threw that at you there, gentlemen. Only just dawned on me when I sort of Carrick Aldo had stood a part of the sponsors. So I was a cracking stake at Dundalk, and I suspect that Magical Luca could be one out of the top drawer for Pat Guilfoyle. Now we're going to move to Kilkenny, because on Friday night we saw the final of the Champion Open Unraced, and the big 2 in the market. Well, there was actually big 3 in the market. Unanimous Leo, who came out on top, was 5-2 joint second favourite alongside Callaway 5, and sent off favourite was Trap 6 Montana Shadow. But the outside of the track, they didn't seem to start at all, whereas the inside of the track did. Unanimous Leo got to the front, opened up a clear advantage down the back straight in good style the son of Glengar Bale at a nice mystery, stretched on and then contained the strong run of Luck and Lep. Montana Shadow lost nothing in defeat, finishing third, beaten only 2 lengths. He is a greyhound with a very, very big future, Montana Shadow. Really, really big fan of him. But unanimous, Leo, where you want to be out is in out front. And this fellow did everything right, Declan. Pat Buckley had a good weekend.
There's nothing like being in front. Excuse me. I always say there's nothing like being in front, and it was a good performance. I agree with you. The other dog you mentioned looks the right prospect, but the winner won on merit, was away. I hadn't particularly noticed that the outside dogs didn't come away quick. I just thought that's just the way it was. But a very impressive winner. But as always in that competition, some very, very nice trackers in behind it as well. Great weekend for Pat Buckley. We'll be touching the English Derby soon, I'm sure. Mind you, he was unlucky there too. One of these dogs that I was really, really looking at was unfortunate to go out behind the lad at that. But there you go. But yeah. I mean, that Kilkenny thing throws up top class greyhounds every year, and this year is no exception.
Yeah, he's a nice dog, Tommy. He's got a lovely turn of early speed, and he's good down the back as well, which is going to be needed going forward. He's still very young, still open to much improvement, but a good winner. And I suppose to give extra joy to the Buckley clan, given the fact that he's a son of Glengar Bale out of Nice Mystery, very much a homebred. Glengar Bale is just starting to throw out a few very nice types. And you know what they have? They all seem to have good early speed. So it'll be interesting to see how his progeny go on forward. But this unanimous Leo, very decent winner. Look and Lep is a real sort of 550-yard greyhound, I would suggest. More so, like he's very strong. He's yet to win a race, but he's one of the most talented maidens in the country after 4 starts. I suspect we'll be seeing him in Shelbourne Park sooner rather than later. He looks a real 550, 575-yard greyhound going forward. And then Montana Shadow back in third. Just didn't happen for him on the night. Missed the kick and cut inwards when he had the room, but showed loads of boot into the third bend.
His pace into the first bend was probably went under the radar, but his pace into the first bend was exceptional. It's just that he missed the kick. Those first 15 yards maybe, but he flew into the bend, and three dog Burgess Mystery didn't turn right, moved off a little bit on the run up and bumped into Callaway Fire, who then switched inside, gave Montana Shadow a little bit of a bump as they ran into the bend. By that stage, unanimously, and I would say we sometimes we can get caught up in how something shows pace, and Montana Shadow obviously comes out of that stake with much credit. But I loved about unanimously. I love the way he tracked. If you can track inside at a track like Kilkenny, if you can track the inside tight and hardly give it away. I know Look and Lep moved inside on the run in, but like there was a bit of a dog, between unanimously and the rails. I mean, there wasn't much. I mean, that's beautiful tracking for a pup. That is really, that's a proper inside seed. That's a proper inside seed. And if he can just continue to build he's obviously going to have much tougher assignments even ahead. But you're winning the Champion Open Unraced in Kilkenny, which has thrown up so many great dogs over the years. I wouldn't like to underestimate it. I know we're focused a little bit on the ones behind. I like the performance. I love the tracking ability of the winner.
Yeah, he's exciting, Declan. Like we're only scratching the surface with the winner, but given his early speed, given his age, like this is the type of dog could rock up and win a puppy derby at Shelbourne Park later in the year. Like that's the sort of quality we were talking about.
Yes, yes, does want the inside. I agree with Tom. You're often better with a tracker either wants the inside or wants the outside. You know exactly what you have, and they know what they want, and to get on with it. You've dogs confused half the time. They're bumping and pushing and shoving on first bend, they're gone. You know what I mean? But he looks a pretty good dog. Does want the inside. He's already a top class dog, and perhaps Tom is right. We must give the winner the credit here. There was a few hard luck stories behind, perhaps, but whether they would have beaten him anyway, that's very questionable, I would have thought.
Yeah, no. Listen, you get out in front in the final. That's what you need to do, and
And every game, yeah.
he won't do that again in the future.
I would say I've over the last couple of weeks I've been impressed by Kilkenny, and I've just the way the dogs raced it, and I've loved the way the dogs raced the outside of the track. And sometimes when a track is a little bit tight, it can encourage the dogs on the outside to run it, and they can be helped by the way they run it. And we talked about the camber last week and whatever else, but actually to be able to track as well inside as unanimously did Declan is 100% right. I've talked about this before. Definition in a greyhound is worth a couple of lengths in any race. In other words, they know exactly what they run their line, they run the right line, and they run it every time. It's worth a couple of lengths. Whether you're a middle, a wide, if you're a middle and you stay four, great. If you're an inside, you stay one. If you're six and you stay six, brilliant, because that's worth a couple of lengths to you. If you start thinking I have to dive in, go out, go left, go right, you're losing a couple of lengths at least in every race. So I like the performance of the winner. I really did.
Yeah. We better move on. We look forward to seeing all six finalists in the Champion Open race going forward, because I think they are a pretty good bunch this year, no question about that. Just want to mention a couple of things happening at Tralee over the weekend. Of course, the Lee Strand took centre stage on Saturday night, won by some real stars in the past. Headley's Trump was a good winner for Nick Cotter. This dog seems to have a bit of everything. He's a son of Coulivanny Hoffa. Notable how well Coulivanny Hoffa has sort of taken off in the last couple of months, being with the Kirby and likes of this dog and a couple of others. This fellow suffered only one defeat in the Lee Strand. That was in the semi-finals when beaten only a half length by Oreo Ali. On this occasion, he exacted his revenge, led early, 29.59. In second spot, Killicolla Hill, and Oreo Ali back in third. Just looking at the race, I would say you could run it 5 or 6 times, but the winner would probably come from that trio each time. I think they're a pretty talented trio, and I think going forward we'll see more of them. But Headley's Trump did very well to win on the night, and just looks a really nice type. The other two in behind, Killicolla Hill and Oreo Wally, both have loads of potential, and be interesting to see how they develop. Another dog we want to mention, the previous evening in the Casco Stake, Declan, a good old pal of ours, a champion stakes winner, Delroad Duke, was at his best. He regained his own track record, 27.85, wins from the front, winning from trap four. There was a time you would have only backed him in trap one or two, but now he's that bit more mature. He can pop out of any box, and he's after winning from trap four in a track record time.
On his night, he is arguably the best dog in the country. I mean, the champion stakes winner, as you say, it's there to do that.
I'll argue that point, Declan, but I see where you're coming from.
I would agree with you about the trap four.
Best dog in the country, not in the country at the moment, of course, but we'll go down that route again.
but what I'm saying is, I would have said that with a visual of being from trap one. But if he's now doing all these sort of things from trap four, that is another dimension to his game completely. I mean, he can let you down too. The nights you're expecting great things from it just doesn't happen. So he is vulnerable that way. But on his night, when he's on song, when he's out there, and he is a superb greyhound. He's a joy to watch, actually.
Yeah, no, absolutely. He returned to Shelbourne Park recently. It was actually his first success in Shelbourne since that Champions Stake victory. Now he's after putting a couple of runs together, most notably down at Tralee. Big run from him. Just a couple of other things I want to mention. Newbridge, there was a good winner of the Newbridge Derby on Friday night. All eyes were on Kanya Steve in the early yards, but he didn't really produce anything like he had done in the early rounds. In contrast, Is She There absolutely took off. She wins a final as you want them to win a final. Daughter of Druby Sydney, Derryhill Josie for Rosemary and Eugene Price, and joint owner Colin Rosbottom, 29.83. It turned out to be a cracking little Newbridge Derby this year. Well done to all involved down in Newbridge, but a fantastic winner, Is She There, leading home Rich Pursuit and Kanya Steve. As I said to you earlier on, Bodis Raven showed all sorts of pace in defeat. She flew down into the third bend, just sort of ran into a bit of traffic at that point. We also have to mention Carrick Park on Saturday night, because the semi-finals of the Open 750 took centre stage, and there was very little between the two heat winners. Well Street Cath winning in 42.20 and Delroad Poppy winning in 42.21. We'll keep you informed of the final next week.
Don't forget to pick up your weekly edition of the Sporting Press, Ireland's #1 greyhound newspaper. Available online from 8 p.m. each Tuesday on sportingpress.ie and in shops from Wednesday.
That's it from Ireland. We're going to switch attention, shall we say, now to the action from Towcester, because Ireland had 5 heat winners in the Derby on Saturday evening. It was a lot to keep across, a lot to keep account of across the board. I was watching in the commentary box at Shelbourne Park, Bubbly Charger, Deladdy Da, Bacco's Diamond, Sing Along Molly and Sola Mio. And while Sola Mio set the standard with a fantastic run from the front in 28.64, all the talk was of the battle between Bacco's Diamond and Cheap Sandwiches. And the more you look at it, the more the run is sort of how would you say it? It's sort of more exalted. It's a better run the more you look at it from Bocco's Diamond Tommy. It looked like he came away reasonably well, but he actually lost his hind legs just for that fraction of a second. And to get going again, to get up the inside of Cheap Sandwiches before charging on to a 2 or 3 length lead, before holding Cheap Sandwiches by a short head, I thought it was a hell of a run by a greyhound that really seems to be have the bit between the teeth now.
Yeah, yeah, maybe. Um, like he did break and just get that just Bill Holman. It did make a difference, obviously, because he might have been an extra half a length in front of Cheap Sandwiches. But like, I think I wrote in my report this morning, like they're kennel mates, but they're building quite a rivalry, these two,
Mm.
and it's getting closer. It's getting closer. Yeah, it's all in favor of Bacchus Diamond at the moment. But you just wouldn't be surprised. It is Toaster after all. You just wouldn't be surprised if there's a turnaround at some stage. I think actually possibly Cheap Sandwiches is getting stronger as well. And I know he was the stronger over 550 last year. Um, but I think he's actually getting stronger as a dog anyway. And I think he's probably maybe slightly overpriced in the outright market. I know he's only five to one seems ridiculous to say he's overpriced, but I think he probably is. It should be a bit closer to Bacchus Diamond. But you say that like it was a brilliant race. Cheap Sandwiches broke slightly in front of Bacchus Diamond. They didn't neither of them absolutely flash from track. Bacchus Diamond slightly dropped the legs for a second, but actually didn't really seem to lose too much. Just flew into the bend, went about a length and a half clear or so, and then Cheap Sandwiches came back at him, and it was just like I always worry when I see these types of dogs in heats against each other and they're drawn so close together. You're thinking, is there going to be trouble? It was a brilliant race. It was an absolutely what greyhound racing is about. That race, you've got an Irish Derby winner, an Irish Derby runner up in the heats of an English Derby, and a short head separates them at the finish, and they both give absolutely everything. I would think. I might just think, and I don't like to think this way, but I might think that Cheap Sam just came out with just in slightly better in my mind. Cheap Sam just.
I don't know what you mean by that.
I
Like,
just think just came away thinking Cheap Sam is the more likely winner of the Derby now.
I think Bacchus Diamond is a certainty.
I like it. I like it.
Absolutely.
I
I think
like. I like that.
absolute
I like
certainty.
that.
I
I,
think
I,
I
I
think
like
I
that.
think if he
I'm
finds
I'm I'm
two
not as keen.
starts, 3 starts, he's the Derby's won. Because off one of his true starts, I think he'll lead Cheap Sandwich to 6 lengths at the third bend. You know,
I
we
won't
saw
aim
we saw
six
we
lengths. Come
saw them
on,
get to
Cheap
within
Sandwich can break better
in
than
the
that. Now,
Derby
come on.
final last year. But if you go back to like Bocco's Diamond's best runs from last year's Derby, I'm not sure there's any greyhound that can be within 5 lengths of the third bend.
Bombay Pat, if he breaks as well, he's got electric pace. So if he breaks, I know he doesn't.
There's
I know
one
he
big
doesn't
word you
tend to.
said there.
If
If
yeah,
if
yeah, I know, I
Declan,
know.
give us your take on
I
it,
tell you,
Declan. I'm sure I
Cheap
think
Sandwiches is
Declan's going
getting
to back you
stronger.
up there
Cheap
now.
Sandwiches is getting stronger in.
I think Declan's going to back you up, but no, I
I don't
really,
know.
I'm getting more impressed by Bocco's Diamond nearly by what he achieved there. Go
Ian,
ahead.
Ian, my problem is my negativity comes in when I want something to happen. I want Bacchus Diamond to go and blitz it, do 28-30, and then come to Ireland and blitz through the Irish Derby again. That's what I want. But I'd like to see it as well, if you know what I mean. I'd
Yeah,
like to see it.
Declan.
Um, I'm sorry. He has only 3 heats to go. That's a big plus. He's not the dog he was in Shelbourne last summer. He's not. He's a hell of a dog. He's the best dog in it, but he's not as good as he was then. He may not have to be. I was impressed with Cheap Sandwiches. That to me was his best ever performance. To make up ground the Bacchus Diamond, being in front, and the way he did. I was favouring Bombay Panda. I've got to not go off that now because he just isn't breaking well enough. You know what I mean? And I would think actually if there's a danger to two, I think Solomia, who I mentioned last week, who I was very impressed with again this time. He's coming good. Exactly. Well, he's a very young dog, but he's coming. He's really flying at the minute. But Bacchus Diamond is a worthy favourite. I would agree with Tom. Maybe Chief Sounders is closer to him even than he was last year. And Solomir is the other one. Now I hate saying all this because here's the Irish bias again. Of course, there are some very good dogs in it. I thought the Freddie dog did well to actually qualify in the end. He's a better dog than he looked on the night. To me, he's the best of the home team, probably because we know him better than some of the other ones. But Bacchus Diamond is the best dog in it. It's a fair point. Now, he's a lot of early pace inside him this Saturday. If he gets through this Saturday, and he doesn't have to win, if he gets through this Saturday, then he is very much the one to beat. But to me, he's not quite at the pitch he was at Shelbourne last summer. I don't think I've ever seen any greyhound be at the pitch Buckles Diamond was last summer, but he's still a mighty good dog. And he did, when we heard he stumbled away, something wasn't right about him. Something wasn't right about that start. Definitely, something just didn't look right about the start. Now we know what it was. He recovered from that against top-class greyhounds. This isn't the first race on a Thursday night. You're in against serious hounds here. You know what I mean? So he's an exceptional dog, and of course he does what all great dogs do. He keeps winning. He finds a way. He's not as good as he was last year, but he probably is still the best dog in the English Derby.
Yeah, I still think he will be as good as he was a dog last year. I think, obviously, you can't come in fully primed, and I think Saturday night was further evidence. Like, you got to remember, he did 28.51 the previous week, absolutely blitzed them. I think it's just further evidence that he's just getting there, and I think we'll see it before the end of this Derby. And I think
is the 2-1? Is the 2-1 not a good price?
Yeah. Yeah, if he was in 6 now on Saturday, I'd probably be tempted, but he's not. And just that stumble just the other evening, that something like that can happen. And if the door closes, that's the issue. If any night the door closes,
you can't bet factoring in that he might stumble.
No, of course not. But it's 2-1. That's the problem. If he was 7-2, fair enough. You know what I mean? But he's 2-1.
He's 7-2. I'd probably back him in.
Yeah, so right.
Look, as I said to you last week, I've backed cheap sandwiches, I've backed Solomio, and I've only backed Bacchus so I don't lose money on the stake. That's the way I stand at the moment. Look, I still want Bacchus to win it, and maybe he will. And you're right. If he does the 28.51 run in the final, if he gets to the final and does the 28.51 run, that wins it. He wins the Derby. He wins the English Derby. Then we have an Irish English Derby winner with the potential to win an Irish Derby again. And what would that make for the summer? It'd be fantastic to look forward to for the Derby. It really would. So
there's no question about that. Yeah,
I'm just trying to be practical about it. To be honest, look at it. Keeping a lid on it for the moment.
That's what people want to hear, Tommy. They want to hear practicality. Let's get into the other heat winners. Bubbly Charger. He is charging. This is a dog who made his debut in the first round of the Kirby Memorial. Finished he finished third in the Kirby. He's just turned into an unbelievably good greyhound. 6-1 the other night. I was sick when I saw that SP. Bombay Pat was second. Bombay Pat did Bombay Pat things. He does a 4:09 sectional, which you think he can recover from that. But when it's Bubbly Charger doing 4 seconds and getting loose on you, you're not going to be picking it up. We know they're both very, very talented greyhounds, but on recent evidence, you got to say that Bubbly Charger is probably going to be in front of Bombay Pat most nights. Pat, his problem is those first 5 stars, and they continue to be the problem. The laddie da was a good winner. He shook off the attention of Balnabulla Joe, who missed the kick and ran a big race to even get involved. Sadly, he had to lose out Balnabulla Joe. He got shuffled back around the bottom 2 bends, completely lost out. Barefoot and Fire also. Badly balked in the first corner, went in a lovely position. So I had to check off and get done. And it was a shame because he was in a lovely position. Bocco's Diamond obviously won. We lost JT Crazen that. He's Ballymac to bet for Fake Point Susie went out. Hello Diego was a close second. Sing Along Molly is the top bitch in the English Greyhound Derby. For anyone that sort of followed my advice on that one, Sing Along Molly became the top bitch in the Derby. 5 going through to last weekend's action and only 1 progressing. That was Sing Along Molly as she picked up Fake Point Harvey. A power pack display. She really looks at home around Toaster, and then Solomio stunning in the final heat, but had to work hard because Dynamic Force was making life difficult for him. It was a great night all in all. Declan, is there any one of the Irish in particular you want to speak about?
For a superstar status, we want Bocco's Diamond. Even the racing blogger is on the bus now. You know what I mean? You could say that's a mixed blessing, one way or the other. But he is involved, and the dog is a superstar, and he's bringing people from outside the sport. People who haven't been a dog racing asked me about him last summer, and it's a long time since we've had that kind of thing happening. But Solomio, you have to say, Peter Cronin, it would be just something about it. Aidan Comerford is involved, of course, and wouldn't you know it? So we have a very strong team in it, So, and, Chief Sandwiches deserve something like this. He really, I still think it's an appalling name, whoever came up with it, but by God, the dog has got everything
I
else.
quite like
You
it.
know what
It's
I mean?
weird.
He really has everything else. So, look, it's a great derby, actually, as it should be. As it should be. And to think we'll have most of them coming and competing in Shelbourne later on the season for another derby, that's just fantastic. Bring it on.
Yeah, Tommy, of the remaining Irish, Solomio is obviously one you were impressed with, Bubbly Charger. But the laddie da is still ticking along there. You know, this is the dog that I said on air in a podcast in the UK. He's probably not as sharp as he once was. And 2 to 3 rounds, he's absolutely flashed out. They come back and haunt you.
No, they don't, because you look, as you know, we've praised this dog a lot. He's a savagely fast dog. I just would say, just remember this for this is not a negative of the laddie da, quite the opposite. But Balnabola Joe came from behind the laddie da to hit him at one stage. Like, I know he got the trouble at the third bend and got knocked out of the competition. Balnabola Joe came from behind the laddie da mid race to put his head in front of him, only barely. But my God, that is some ability from Balnabola Joe. It's absolutely savage ability. He's out of the competition for further down the line. If he can get his trapping right and consistent, my God, like, I'm always kind of, I don't want to jump on the bandwagon early with greyhounds, because so many of them, when they get into this sort of level, it just goes backwards a bit. He excelled through the competition, Balnabola Joe. I'd also say that what I liked about Solomio the other night was that he found extra to do the 28.64. He previously, I would have thought, he's probably a little bit weak in the finish, and he's going to get picked off by top greyhounds. But he actually found a bit extra, because Dynamic Force, to my mind, that was the best run I've ever seen from Dynamic Force, and it was in defeat. I thought that was a huge effort by him. Now, Solomio and Cheap Challenges are in the same heat, I think, next Saturday night. Is that right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, and that'll be interesting to see who leads it. Like, Solomio probably has to lead, and if he doesn't, qualification might be an issue. I don't know, but just there was a little bit more maturity in that run the other night. Quite a bit more maturity in that run, let's be honest. So maybe he is a player. I backed him, but I wasn't confident anyway. I just thought the price before the start of the competition was big. I was kind of hopeful that he'd keep qualifying. But I mean, that run the other night was definitely a step forward. And honestly, I think that Dynamic Force ran the race of his career to date.
Yeah, Solomeo strengthened up during the Kirby. There was no question about that. His run to final was easily his best in that competition. And then he came to England. I wouldn't say they had an awful lot of work done with him. And he is strengthening up as we're watching. What I was impressed with the other evening was the fact that I knew Churchfield Sid was in the race. He was going to have to do much better than his 407, 410, and he found a start, and he showed the early speed to get up the inside of a Churchfield Sid who led the final last year. Now, just, I know he's getting on a bit, but he showed great early speed, and he had to, because Dynamic Force, as you said, I would almost agree with you. I think that was his best run ever in defeat. Big run by both of them. The Irish are ticking along lovely. Declan, it'd be a major surprise if they didn't win it, and yet you still be sort of nervous. You know what I mean? Like, with the top 5 in the market, we arguably should probably have the top 6 or 7 in the market, but that's for another day.
I would say the best value in the market is Bubbly Charger.
Yeah.
I mean, we're all focusing on Bombay Pat, but let's not take anything from the winner. As you say, he was a very, very good dog in Kirby. He's still improving, still progressing. He's in top hands. Just for a lively outsider. He is, but now it really tightens up this Saturday. There are going to be a few casualties this week.
I would have loved to have seen Bubbly Charger draw the middle of the track. He's been drawn back in 1, and it's been notable, the improvement from the middle, from trap 4.
There are going to be quite a few casualties this Saturday, lads. You better brace yourselves for it. There's going to be.
March on Freddie is one frustrating greyhound, isn't he? To have that ability, just not put things together often enough. March on Freddie, he just would frustrate the life out of you.
He's just not suited by the place. He just doesn't have the early speed, and he just,
he didn't have the early speed.
The other evening, I think he checked off the final bend. Like, I think they spoke about him afterwards. I think they spoke to George Watson, the owner, and he said he got distracted just off the last bend. It was if I think they were saying that it was much noisier and it was a much bigger crowd at Toaster on Saturday night than it had been, and it sort of just hit them sort of off that last bend, a wall of noise. But be interesting to see how he performs. He's
long in the tooth for that. Like, I mean, he's around a while, and he showed in an early round around the Irish Derby, what he's capable of. But it's frustrating when you have one that good. They're once in a lifetime type dogs. His ability.
Mm. It's an intriguing English Greyhound Derby, but thankfully Ireland have a very, very strong hand. You heard the boys agreeing with me that I think the Bacchus Diamond was the one to beat, and there's no way that anything else could beat him. Tommy smirking away down there. No, there's a lot to happen in this Star Sports TRC English Greyhound Derby, and we wish our Irish runners the very, very best of luck going forward. We haven't mentioned them. I didn't mention him as an Irish runner because technically he's not. But we have to give Kim Bergen a mention. Declan, with Prince Nassim, is still there. He's still delivering. He was back strongly the other evening from Trap One. He was actually sent off the 5-2 favourite in his second round heat or third round heat. Excuse me, and he qualified in third behind Droopy's Aladdin. So Kim, I know, is taking every slide with Prince Nassim. He'll be coming back to Ireland, and Kim wants to see him recognised as an Irish Greyhound. Sorry, Kim, he's trained in England, but we will keep flying the flag for you. He's still there, and he's still punching away, Prince Nassim, and he had some good punching power back in his day. So who knows? Prince Nassim could possibly be in the semi-finals of an English Greyhound Derby. That would be some achievement. But that's it. That's it. My thanks again to the exiled one and to the Dublin doyen that is Declan O'Donoghue. Gentlemen, thanks very much for all your input. It's been a long one. We had a lot to talk about, but best of luck to anyone with a Greyhound running this weekend, especially if it's in the likes of the Produce Stakes, the Sporting Press Online Edition Irish Oaks, the English Derby, or wherever it may be. Another wonderful weekend of Greyhound racing ahead of us. We'll be back in a week from now, but that's it from us here on Talking Dogs on Monday. We'll see you next time. Good luck, good evening, God bless.
This podcast was brought to you by Greyhound Racing Ireland.